For the last 50 years, global trade has operated under one absolute law. If a nation wants to buy energy, commodities, or manufactured goods, they are mathematically forced to acquire United States dollars. And to move those dollars across borders, they must navigate a Western-controlled messaging network known as SWIFT. SWIFT is not merely a payment system. It is a geopolitical weapon. If a nation falls out of line, they are unplugged from the network, their central bank reserves are frozen, and their economy is plunged into the dark ages overnight. But the weapon has been overused. Over the last 3 years, the world's largest commodity producers quietly engineered an escape hatch. Deep within the digital architecture of international finance, a multinational coalition built a shadow settlement network, a highly advanced, distributed ledger that bypasses the dollar, bypasses SWIFT, and allows hostile nations to trade billions in hard assets in absolute secrecy. Welcome to the Shadow Capital Archives. Today, we are deconstructing the technological and economic infrastructure of Project mBridge. We will examine how this system went from a theoretical white paper to a fully operational financial rail processing billions in wholesale central bank digital currencies. And we will expose the mathematical reality of what happens to the American economy when the global demand for its debt suddenly evaporates. To understand the lethality of mBridge, you have to understand the artificial subsidy that keeps the Western financial system afloat. When two sovereign nations trade, for example, China buying oil from the United Arab Emirates, they rarely use their own local currencies. Historically, the Emirati dirham and the Chinese yuan were not deeply liquid outside their own borders. They lacked the universal trust required for massive multi-billion-dollar energy contracts. So, they settled the trade in dollars. The buyer must acquire dollars, and the seller must accept them. Because every nation needs dollars to conduct international trade, every central bank on Earth is forced to stockpile US Treasury bonds. They park their national wealth in American debt because it is the only asset liquid enough to facilitate global commerce. This structural requirement creates an infinite artificial demand for American debt. It allows the United States to run multi-trillion-dollar deficits, fund sprawling global operations, and subsidize domestic consumption without triggering immediate hyperinflation. The rest of the world effectively absorbs the inflation. They finance the American lifestyle because they have no other choice. But this system relies entirely on the illusion of neutrality. The moment the dollar was weaponized to freeze the sovereign assets of a G20 nation, a chilling realization swept through global capitals. If your national reserves are held in another country's currency and settled on another country's network, you do not actually own your wealth. You merely have permission to use it. The response was swift, silent, and highly coordinated. In 2021, the central banks of China, Thailand, Hong Kong, and the United Arab Emirates convened. Backed by the institutional legitimacy of the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of central banks, they began writing the code for a multi-central bank digital currency platform. The objective was simple but mathematically devastating to the West. Build a distributed ledger that allows central banks to trade directly with one another, instantly, using tokenized versions of their own currencies. No correspondent banks, no US dollar conversion, no SWIFT routing, no exposure to Western sanctions. They called it Project mBridge. For years, Western analysts dismissed mBridge as a mere science experiment, a sandbox for blockchain enthusiasts that could never scale to handle the immense complexities of global trade settlement. They severely miscalculated. By mid-2024, the platform reached its minimum viable product stage, and the financial landscape tilted permanently. In June 2024, the Saudi Central Bank, the very architect of the original petrodollar system, officially joined mBridge as a full participant. Saudi Arabia's elevation from observer to full participant was one of the most consequential geopolitical financial developments of the decade. It received remarkably little mainstream coverage. The system shifted from a theoretical pilot to a live institutional infrastructure, capable of processing real-value cross-border corporate transactions. Under the legacy system, a cross-border payment could take days, routing through multiple correspondent banks, each taking a fee and exposing the transaction to political oversight. Under mBridge, utilizing a custom-built distributed ledger known as the mBridge ledger, transactions achieve instantaneous atomic settlement. Payment versus payment. When the UAE buys manufactured goods from China, or China buys energy from Saudi Arabia, the settlement occurs natively on the ledger using wholesale central bank digital currencies. By late 2024, the Bank for International Settlements formally handed the project over to its founding partners. The official narrative was that the project had simply matured past the incubation phase. The reality, whispered in financial corridors, was that Western governments were escalating pressure over a system designed explicitly to structurally reduce the effectiveness of dollar-denominated sanctions. The BIS exit was a geopolitical necessity. The macroeconomic fallout for the Western consumer is mathematically terrifying. If global energy and commodity trades slowly migrate to alternative, tokenized ledgers like mBridge, the structural demand for US dollars plummets. Trillions of dollars currently held by foreign central banks strictly for trade facilitation will become obsolete. When those excess dollars eventually flow back to their origin point, the inflation that the United States successfully exported for 5 decades will return home. The $40 trillion national debt is currently sustained only by the assumption that the world will always need to buy American paper to buy foreign oil. Project mBridge is the undeniable operational proof that they no longer do. To understand how central banks are hedging against this exact scenario by quietly hoarding physical assets at unprecedented rates, you need to understand the Tier 1 gold reclassification. Click the video on your screen to explore the gold gambit.